I'm on the phone here with actor, artist, writer. He does it all. A man of many hats, Rick Lenz. Rick, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, I actually discovered your work and did more research about you thanks to one of my favorite movies of all time. I guess some people would say it's kind of a B-rated movie because it's not really remembered by a lot of people, but it did have the late great Peter Sellers in it, and from 1972, you were actually a lead role in the movie Where Does It Hurt, about a corrupt hospital run by a corrupt CEO who did everything possible to make some money.
Right.
What are some of your, before we get into your life, what are some of your memories about that movie? I know that's been going back 40 plus years ago, but it seems like you guys had a lot of fun doing that movie.
Oh, we did. We had a terrific time. I remember I was supposed to do another movie in New York because I was living in kind of both New York and L.A. at the time, and then I came out here, and my agent said, they want you to do a Peter Sellers film. And I said, oh, well, that's it. I'll take it. Thank you. And so we worked in a hospital over in Culver City, and it was terrific fun. Peter was one of the most gifted people I ever encountered in my whole life and career. He just... he was kind of a little distant at that time, I thought, in terms of personal stuff off camera with almost everybody. But when he was on camera, and I don't mean he was unpleasant or anything. He was fine. But on camera, he did stuff that I just couldn't believe. I remember doing one scene where we had 4 or 5 angles on it. Each time, he would just have the kind of he was right there doing that kind of stuff that he's so good at making all these wide variety of characters work. It was wonderful.
Yeah, that movie is just so much fun, and I wish it got more recognition. I mean, it's really hard to find. It's even hard to find anywhere.
I know. Well, you know what happened for a while? It was on. It actually did very well the first couple times. In fact, it was kind of, I think, a sort of a cult thing for the 2 or 3 years, and I remember it played the Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard about 3 summers in a row, and then it became unavailable. I think part of the reason was that it was that kind of Archie Bunker sort of bad taste stuff that was in it. I don't mean real bad taste.
A lot of dark comedy,
kind of,
right?
A little bit that way.
Yeah.
And so I heard the AMA had lobbied against showing it.
I saw that.
I don't know what there is to that, but it's not impossible that something like that happened. And so anyway, but recently they've kind of tamed it down a little bit, and in the end, I think they got a pretty good balance, and it's working pretty well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I see it's on Amazon Prime now, so it's really cool that's getting a little bit of exposure finally. Awesome.
I'm very glad.
Yeah, great movie. Well, let's back up a little bit and get to your life. So, how did you get into acting and film and all that kind of good stuff?
Well, I was going to be a doctor. My dad was a doctor, and my mother thought it'd be a nice idea if I joined him in his practice. Only problem was that I saw my dad do a couple of surgical procedures and fainted both times. So decided that wasn't for me. And there was a local stock company that I got into, and I started to do that, and then I changed my major at college, University of Michigan, to theater arts, and then I was hooked, and I went to New York a couple of years after I got out of college, and did all those jobs everybody does. I was a night clerk, and I was Mr. Peanut one day at a grocery supermarket. And,
that's cool.
I did more things than I can count to make ends meet, and then finally I started to work, and I got a job at the World Fair, and I was an MC at the IBM Pavilion, and I would come down on a one-man elevator and talk to all the people on what they called the people wall, and then we'd go up and I would do a show up inside. I'm trying to get through too much too fast, aren't I?
No, that's okay.
Anyway, I got some off-Broadway work, and then I got a Broadway job in a play called Mating Dance with Van Johnson, which lasted. If you look it up in the internet database for Broadway, it says it opened on whatever date in I forget the year offhand, but and then it said it closed the same day. So the next morning I had a telegram slept under my door that said, you don't have to come in tonight because there won't be a show tonight. So
wow.
That was the...
Well, we all, I guess in that line of work, you got to have adventures like that, sometimes things just go that way. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then you got into some TV. I know you had some appearances, and I think you had even in MASH and Green Acres and shows like that. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I was in Green Acres because I'd done Cactus Flower on Broadway with Lauren Bacall, and I got seen, and they asked me to do a pilot, and then the pilot didn't sell, but they said, well, they were producing Green Acres as well. Why don't you do this role for a while? And so I did. I was Eddie Albert's law partner for 4 episodes until I got the movie of Cactus Flower, and so they let me out to be in the movie, and because they know I would have had to commit harikari if I was doing Green Acres instead of doing the movie I'd done on Broadway. Right.
So then you did some television, So what was your last major role in television or film?
I'm up on it. Forgive me.
That's okay.
It was in the early part of this millennium.
Okay.
Because I've been writing for the last 15 years. So,
right.
And I've done 2 or 3 things, but not much. I did a film in which I was the governor of California.
Okay.
It was called Tequila Express, I believe. I'm not sure you can even find it right now. In fact, I looked up the film that I was doing, that I told you I was about to do when I did Where Does It Hurt Instead, and it was called The Wrong Damn Film. I think Barry Bostwick ended up doing my role.
Right.
And I don't think it ever went anywhere, so I made the best choice to be in this film with Peter. And so I did some Murder, She Wrote episodes, and I had a series called Heck Ramsey, which I did with Richard Boone, and it rotated with the Sunday night murder mystery NBC, I think, series, and it rotated with Columbo and Macmillan and Wife, and I think one other one. That was fun, and we got picked up for the 3rd season, but Richard Boone was not feeling too well, and so we had to drop that series then.
Right.
Or the NBC dropped it because of Mr. Boone's illness.
Right.
And
so I think I remember your appearances on Murder, She Wrote, because I used to watch that show all the time every Sunday night with my mom, and I think I remember. Yeah. Good.
Well, the one I liked best was the one where I was. I think my wife gets killed, and I'm a deputy, I think, with...
That's right, yes, I remember that, yes.
I can't think of the actor. Anyway, so I'm accused of murder, but I didn't really... Well, I shouldn't give it away in case you see it sometime.
Right.
But what I am mostly is a rogue, and I go around and have affairs with all the women in town on
I remember that
days,
one.
And the title of that one is, I think, is If It's Tuesday, It Must Be Beverly.
That's right,
so,
yeah. So talk a little bit about your transition from, obviously you said that your last perhaps major role was in the early part of this century, and then you kind of transitioned more to writing and art and stuff like that. What explain the transition? Why did you do that?
Well, I really felt that I'd been writing as well as acting since I was really young.
Right.
And I wrote plays, and sometimes one was done on PBS, and
cool.
A couple off Broadway and around the country, and I liked doing that a lot. And as I got to be, got a certain age older, in my 60s, I realized that the roles I was being offered were not as much fun as they used to be, and they were kind of a lot of times, just functionary kind of characters that just, I would represent a law firm, and it was just kind of straightforward stuff. And the roles just weren't as much fun, and I thought at that time that it would be more, kind of rewarding to just concentrate on writing and do some stuff that I really, enjoyed doing and could do on my own terms. Nobody ever says after you do a day of writing, they never say, as they do in the theater, or louder, faster, or anything like that. Nobody tells you what to do.
Right.
So I'm able to write on my own terms, and it's a lot of fun.
So talk a little bit about your writing style.
Sure. Well, I think at the beginning it was a lot of dialogue in my my novels and my memoir, which is called North of Hollywood, because I just well, actually not a special amount of dialogue in my books now, but when I started off, that was my strength because I'd written plays, and as I went along, I began to realize that I had more fun, or as much fun, just mixing it up and just writing descriptive and interesting material, or what seemed like interesting material to me. And I love good books. I love all kinds of wonderful literature, and so it made me happy to do that. So
yeah, I follow
every day.
I follow you on Facebook, and I see you post a lot of inspirational type quotes to do with literature and books and the power of reading and the storyline and all that good stuff. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I just I don't know when it happened exactly. I just kind of got involved in. My wife and I both have read a lot. We do kind of little spiritual readings every morning because it just kind of. It's kind of like, I guess, yoga, or it's just a kind of meditation in a way. And it helps me have both of us, Linda's my wife, and I have a better day. I just, if I kind of go off into the world, whatever I'm going to do that day, and think that it's the most important thing I can do is to be, kind and generous and all that kind of good thing, and. So that's where that comes from, and it actually does inform all my writing, and my writing still has lots of good, interesting stuff like, murders and back and forth in time and mystery and all that kind of thing.
Right.
That's,
And it looks like you also do some art as well too. I've seen some of your very beautiful paintings on Facebook.
Oh, thank you. It's just as you said that, I turned around and looked at a wall full of small paintings that I've done. I don't know. I had one of those experiences in early school where they said, you can't draw, you can't be an artist. And then my wife was very supportive of all my creative stuff. Said, I love your little drawings. So I started to do them, and then I started to paint what I'd done, and I love color, all kinds of. I love colorful stuff, and so I just started to do what I do, and I was disenfranchised of my old idea that you had to be a great draftsman, an artist. It isn't necessarily the case,
right?
And so anyway, I can do that to whatever degree I can do that, and it's a lot of fun, and,
right?
I enjoy it. I haven't been doing it lately because, as I said, I'm up to my chin right now in the writing project I'm on right now. And my last book, which came out in September, and is called Impersonators Anonymous. It took me, I started working on it maybe 20 years ago, and I'd stop for a while and write something else, and then it finally got to be where it was exactly what I wanted it to be, and so it's a lot of fun. It's about James Dean and John Wayne, a lost movie that they had not quite completed, and a young woman producer comes across the old editor who stole the A negative, and that's the takeoff place for that, and it's I think a lot of fun.
That's really cool. Do you still do any performances at all? Like, do you ever perform any of your poetry or works in public, or are you?
Once in a while I go out and do a show.
Okay.
Just a one-person thing. I had a one-man show I did for a lot of years called Last Class about a professor who misbehaves at a faculty tea, and gets fired, and he comes to school the next day and to deliver his last lecture, and he begins by pouring a large martini and drinking and just saying everything he thinks about the world, and that was a lot of fun to do. So I got used to doing one-man things. So every once in a while I go out and just kind of talk about the creative process, or at least my creative process, and it's a treat to get up in front of an audience because I don't do it as often as I used to.
Right.
Last year I went to University of Michigan
cool.
for a thing, and I also did something in my hometown, which is Jackson, Michigan, and I went to a lovely old theater, Michigan Theater, and talked about my all my creative stuff, mostly my acting, I guess.
Yeah. When I was talking to your wife by email, I found out that she spent some years in Pennsylvania, not far from where I live.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, she was born in Jeannette and raised in Port Carbon, which I understand is not terribly far from where you are.
No, actually, Port Carbon's only about 45 minutes from the university and only about 20 minutes from where I live. So that's same county, Schuylkill County.
Really?
Yep.
Really? I was doing a job there, I don't know, several years ago, and we drove to Pennsylvania, to her old hometown, to Port Carbon and Pottsville.
Yep, Pottsville.
Where I understand John O'Hara from, and so it was lovely. I could see, it looked like a nice place to grow up.
Yeah. I didn't spend my entire life there. I'm kind of a transplant. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area, but when I got married, when I got married and got the job here at the university, we found a home in Schuylkill County and liked it a lot, and we've been there ever since. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, nice area to raise a family. Yep.
Yeah, I sometimes miss having. I came from a kind of probably an equivalent kind of a area in terms of population, anyway, and. In Jackson, Michigan, and it's actually smaller than it was now since the sudden outflow of all the auto industry and so on. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it was a great place to grow up. It was just I like being. I love the big cities, but I like to get away from them too. So
right.
It's
What would you say some of your big inspirations are in your work, which most notably now is your writing, since you're not doing as much acting? What would you say your big inspirations are? Is it?
Well, I could name a couple people.
Go for it. Yeah.
Who inspired me a lot. One was a wonderful professor, acting teacher I had in college, and I remember I was doing a play called Look Homeward Angel, based on the Thomas Wolfe book, and it had won the Pulitzer Prize. And this woman, I remember I almost memorized the role when we auditioned, and when we had the first table reading of that play before we started to block it, she said after the reading, she said, "Intuition is not enough, Ricky," and she was that kind of a person. She would, if you made a choice, an acting choice, she would say, "Well, that's valid," and then maybe or once in a while she'd say, "That's valid," and so. And maybe give you her own ideas. My other inspiration was probably more Alan Alda, who was, as you know, the guy who just got the award, the SAG award a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And I did a play with him in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and it was the second season I'd worked there, and we did a play. 6-person play called Sunday in New York. I guess so. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
So I think Sunday in New York. And anyway, Alan had just been studying with the son, Paul Sills, the Second City kind of stuff, and he was very much into improvisational. And so all the 6 of us in the cast, we all got together for during the run of the show, and then also back in New York afterwards, and did improvisational stuff. And I'd had maybe 10 or so teachers in my life, acting teachers, and probably the most influential for me was Alan. He just was such a positive, delightful. Anything can happen if you work to make it happen. Kind of a character that it really got under my skin, and I think I've always kept his kind of spirit in a way, what I got from that experience, and that was really valuable.
That's really cool. So,
yeah,
and it's good to have people like that you can look up to and have been inspirations to you throughout your entire life, because it's kind of it's kind of a basis to everything else that you do.
Oh, isn't it really just when you remember good teachers you had, you think, oh my, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And even the experience of being able to work with people over the years in your acting career, like Peter Sellers and Angela Lansbury, and it just having that whole, catalog of working with wonderful minds like that.
Yeah, it is really inspiring, and it kind of it makes you want to, do the best work you can do, and however it turns out to be on the popularity spectrum, it really isn't the point. The point is that you're enjoying your work. And
so what's coming up in the if you could predict the future, what do you any big projects or any big thoughts that you're working on in the coming years?
Well, yeah, I've got kind of it's a love story. It's gotten to be fairly long. It's a novel. It's kind of it's a love story about somebody who gets another chance to repeat his youth, but realizes that he's in doing so he's lost what he finally found in a relationship, and so it's both the young and older version of the same couple, and that's really exciting because I'm able to just free associate and take it where it needs to go, and then kind of hone it into its plot pattern that it has to have as I'm going along. So this is really kind of a wonderful challenge for me, and it's the sort of thing that, as an actor, a lot of times you don't work as much when you're later in your career, but when you're writing, I can just get up every day, and I'm as excited about my day's work as I have ever been.
That's cool.
That's a gift, and I'm very fortunate.
Well, as Paul Harvey used to always say, if you really enjoy what you're doing, you never work a day in your life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who said that? Did you say that?
I think that was Paul Harvey. I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Whoever it was, that's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's his quote. I'll double check that when I'm done. But
that's good. I love it.
Yeah, that's a fantastic quote. So where can anybody who's interested in your work, where can we learn more about you? I'm assuming you have your own.
Well, you can look at ricklenz.com.
Okay.
And my books, which include North of Hollywood and the one I mentioned, Impersonators Anonymous, and
right.
Another one, the Alexandrite, which has Marilyn Monroe as a character in it.
That's cool.
And she was so much fun to research because she was an all over the place. She was a crazy, but she was also. Where Billy Wilder was alleged to have said that at a certain point after she had died, somebody asked him why he wasn't doing the kind of comedies he used to do, like The Apartment and Some Like It Hot. And he said, "There's no more Marilyn."
No more Marilyn. Yeah. I can imagine.
She was really good in that area of what she did. Nobody was better.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, I want to thank you so much for talking to me. I know I went a little over my promised 20 minutes, and I apologize for that.
Okay, I've enjoyed it.
You're just an inspiration. I really appreciate that. You kind of show that you're not. You should never pigeonhole yourself into one specific area. You can do many different things, and I just really see you as an inspiration. And I think that's fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That's very kind of you, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk to people about.
And it was that silly little movie, Where Does It Hurt, that got me into researching you more.
Well, I'm glad you saw it, and I always kind of liked that movie. So it's I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job. And do you keep in touch with any of the other actors that are still?
I've spoken to Joanne Flug a couple of times, but not her on a regular basis. And of course, Peter's long gone now.
Right.
After having done maybe one of the best movies ever, I think, Being There.
Oh, Being There, yeah. That was one of his last movies, I believe, right?
It was.
Yeah.
I think it was close to the end, yeah.
Yeah.
And, he was...
And, of course, all of his Pink Panther movies were classic as well, too.
Oh, absolutely. He just was gifted beyond belief.
Yeah, we definitely lost him way too soon, but...
Yeah, we did.
Well, thank you so much, Rick. I want to, really appreciate it and encourage people to check out your website, ricklenz.com, and thanks so much for talking to me.
Oh, you're welcome, Michael. It's my entire pleasure.
All right. You have a great day, sir.
You too, Michael.
Okay, bye-bye.